Chapter 1. The Dust and the Silence. The wind carried dust across the plains like forgotten stories, brushing against the wooden skeleton of Redstone, a weary frontier town clinging to life on the edge of Apache territory. The sun hung low in a copper sky, casting long shadows across the dry earth and cracked souls of the people who dared to call this place home. Among them was Lena Nantan, a half-Apache woman with eyes like storm clouds and hands that had stitched more wounds than most doctors. Life had cut her deep, losing her mother to disease, her father to bullets, and her brother to a broken treaty. She lived on the outskirts of Redstone in a modest hut built from salvaged timber, tending to wild herbs and broken animals, both human and beast. Lena wasn't looking for trouble, but trouble had a way of riding into town with spurs on its heels. Chapter 2. Blood on the Saddle. 2 days after the Redstone cattle auction, the richest man in the region went missing. Cole Harlan, the cattle baron of Black Mesa Ridge, had money, enemies, and a reputation for being as stubborn as a bull and just as dangerous. His men searched high and low, but he was gone. No ransom, no witnesses, no trail. Until Lena found him. She'd been tracking a wounded fox through the woods when she saw the disturbed earth, barely noticeable to someone less observant. Something in her gut twisted. She dropped to her knees and began to dig with her bare hands. The scent of blood hit her first. Then a finger twitched. Chapter 3. Breathe, damn you. He was barely alive, covered in bruises, ribs crushed, a bullet wound festering in his side, and a black eye swollen shut. Someone had meant for him to die slow, buried alive among the roots and the silence. Lena hauled him out with a strength born of desperation, dragging his near-lifeless body to her cabin. For 3 nights she kept death at bay with poultices, fire-heated knives, and whispered words from the old Apache prayers her grandmother used to sing. On the 4th night, his eyes opened. You ain't death," he rasped. "No," she said, wringing out a cloth. "But you met her. I just beat her to the punch." His name came out between coughs. Cole Harlan. And then he whispered something that made her stop in her tracks. They were wearing marshal badges, but they weren't law. Chapter 4. Ghosts in Uniform. Cole's words haunted her. Fake marshals. A cattle war had been simmering beneath Redstone for months. Ranchers wanted Apache land, and crooked deals were being made in saloons and behind church doors. Lena's people had been driven to the hills, forced to trade freedom for survival. Cole, a man raised on land disputes and gunpowder, was no friend to Apaches. But he'd refused to sell his grazing land to the syndicate that had taken root in Redstone. That decision had nearly gotten him killed. And now, by a cruel twist of fate, he owed his life to the daughter of the people his kind had once tried to erase. Chapter 5. Tending Wounds. As Cole healed, he began to see Lena in ways he hadn't allowed himself to see women for years. Not since the war, not since the betrayal of his last love, had left him scarred inside, worse than any bullet ever had. She had calloused hands, a sharp tongue, and eyes that didn't flinch, but she also laughed like someone who'd forgotten how and just remembered, and she made stew that could make a grown man weep. "What were you really doing out here alone?" he asked one morning as she changed his bandage. "Same as you," she answered without looking up. "Surviving." They didn't speak of love, not then, but it was building, quietly, like a storm behind the hills. Chapter 6. Redstone Burns. One night, a shot rang out through the woods. Lena was outside gathering firewood when the bullet grazed her shoulder. Cole, still limping but fast with a rifle, pulled her inside and returned fire. "They found me," he said, loading the chamber with steady hands. "They think I'm dead, You're now a loose end. Lena gritted her teeth as she pressed a cloth to her bleeding shoulder. So we make them regret finishing the job. He stared at her, something raw and grateful in his eyes. You're something fierce, woman. I'm not afraid of men with fake badges, she said, but I am tired of burying good people. Cole leaned in and whispered, then let's stop burying. Let's start fighting. Chapter 7. The Last Ride to Redstone. They rode at dawn. Cole, still favoring his left side, wore his old duster and pinned on a tarnished real marshal badge, the one he'd once thrown in a river after losing faith in justice. Lena, her arm bound in a sling, carried a hunting knife and a satchel of dynamite Cole had been hiding in a false panel under his floorboards. Redstone hadn't changed, but the people were waiting, watching from porches and broken windows as the two ghosts rode into town like judgment itself. They went straight to the saloon. Inside were Judge Talcat, Deputy Brandt, and Silas Wren, the ringleader behind the cattle syndicate. Their laughter stopped when Cole pushed open the door. Well, Wren sneered, I thought we buried you. You buried me wrong, Cole growled and raised his shotgun. Chapter 8. Gunpowder and Redemption. What followed was chaos. Lena ducked behind the bar, lighting fuses and tossing dynamite under the table as bullets flew. Cole moved with the fury of a man born in fire, taking down two syndicate men before a shot knocked him off his feet. Lena stabbed a man trying to grab her from behind, then dove to shield Cole as another round of gunfire burst overhead. The townsfolk began to spill in, not to help, but to witness. And in that moment, as Talcott tried to run, it was old Sheriff Granger, long thought too drunk to matter, who stepped out from the shadows and fired the final shot. Been waiting years to clean up this town, he muttered. Chapter 9. What he whispered made them both. Later, with the town stunned into silence and the syndicate dismantled, Lena sat beside Cole on the edge of Redstone's only well. His head rested on her lap, blood seeping through his shirt again. She touched his face, the firelight dancing in her eyes. Don't you die now, she whispered. He smiled faintly. Not till I tell you. Tell me what? He took a long breath. I used to think loyalty was a curse, that love made you weak. But I was wrong. His voice cracked. You made me believe again, and I want to build a life with you. If you'll have me. Lena blinked, tears catching in the dust on her cheeks. That's what you wanted to tell me? Oh, he smiled. I also wanted to say, your stew is awful. She burst out laughing and kissed him, the kind of kiss that makes even the stars hold their breath. Chapter 10. After the dust settles. Months passed. Lena and Cole rebuilt his ranch together, calling it Crosswinds for the two lives that had crossed in the wilderness. Apache children roamed the fields freely, no longer hunted. The town of Redstone, now humbled and reshaped, began to heal. Cole walked with a limp. Lena wore a scar on her shoulder, but in each other, they found more than survival. They found peace. And every night, as they sat on the porch under the wide desert sky, Cole would take her hand and whisper, still here, still yours. And Lena would smile, her voice softer than a prairie wind. And always,